Hello and welcome to the Action Network podcast, UFC Betting Preview. I'm Sean Zerillo, joined today by Billy Ward to help you break down Saturday's UFC card at the Apex. 12-fight card going down at 4 p.m. Eastern, main card 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you'd like to tail some of the bets that we discuss on today's show, make sure to find the quick slip links both in the podcast and the video description, or go to actionnetwork.com/betnow. Main event, Roman Dolidze coming in at about a plus 240 underdog line against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez at minus 320. Middleweight division 5-round main event in the Apex. Fight around minus 220 and inside the distance, plus 175 to go to a decision. My read here, generally speaking, Dolidze early or Fluffy late. The inflection point at which the fight becomes late could be as early for me as a round and a half into the fight. Roman, the bigger man, 2 inches taller, 1 inch reach advantage, is physically stronger as well. But I think if he wants to win the fight, or if he's going to win the fight, he has to hurt Fluffy to the body early, get him backing up, get him to stop initiating the forward pressure, and eventually putting Dolidze into the washing machine. Because once Fluffy gets you in his grasp, that is generally the beginning and the end of the fight for you as his opponent. He re-wrestles and re-wrestles and re-wrestles until you're having a heart attack underneath him. He'll make mistakes. He'll fall off top, trying to go for submissions, trying to get the back, trying to advance position, allow his opponents to scramble out from underneath him. But he will just mat return you or re-wrestle you until he gets you back on the ground and you are completely and utterly exhausted. So I do think Dolidze has a potential physicality edge here early. Could potentially deny the takedowns or just hurt Hernandez on the feet. But once Hernandez is able to get his style implemented, I think that is the beginning of the end for Dolidze. I think there's a couple of ways you could express an opinion in terms of betting on this fight. The first would be an under ladder, the under 4.5, 3.5, 2.5, 1.5. I think the under 1.5 is as high as plus 300. So you could just ladder the unders all the way down. If Dolidze wins early, you hit all the bets. If Hernandez wins in halfway through round 2, just before the halfway mark of round 2, you win all bets if he wins. Later in round 2, early in round 3, you win 3 of the 4 bets. I think that could be an approach to take. You can also potentially take the under 1.5 and then bet Hernandez's late props. So you have the under 1.5 as a potential hedge in case Dolidze does knock him out early. And then you get Hernandez round 3, round 4, round 5, each at about 10-1 or 12-1. There wasn't a big spread on those round props, but you could structure those out. Hernandez to win 3-4-5 with an under 1.5 and an under 2.5. The same game parlay angle of the Hernandez and over 1.5 was juiced to about minus 175. Wasn't too interested in laying the juice on him to win after the 7.5 minute mark, even though I think that is his likeliest win condition for the fight. So a couple of different approaches. I'm probably going to have an under 1.5 ticket, maybe an under 2.5 ticket, and then Hernandez 3-4-5 props. Billy, you're leaning to Dolidze potentially in round 1 here, but then you like Fluffy as a live bet. I also love Fluffy as a live bet after about 5 minutes. He may get the peak price at that point, but if he's landing takedowns in round 1, Dolidze is going to gas eventually, and there will be no entry point on Fluffy because he'll be minus 500 after the first round. So how, aside from Dolidze round 1 into Fluffy live, any alternative ways you would consider betting on this fight? And then in terms of my breakdown, what did I miss?
Yeah, the breakdown, perfect. The only thing I would add is Roman Dolidze is a better technical grappler than Anthony Hernandez. Like, if you watch his tape, he went to ADCC, goes for cool calf slicers, just has a much broader range of options or weapons or tools, however you want to phrase that he's able to use. But so was Brendan Allen, and so was half the people Hernandez fights. And it's a lot like Merab Dvalishvili at 135. We're this guy should be better, Said Nurmagomedov, whoever. But if you just keep doing stuff until they get tired, eventually it's going to work, and nobody can keep up with him. So, yeah, that's the one thing I would say is I keep watching tape on Anthony Hernandez trying to decide what he's good at other than, cardio. And he's just relentless. Just that kind of pressure. It's weird because his shots aren't perfect. He's not especially explosive. He's not hitting you with any cool submissions you haven't seen before. He just keeps coming. So that was interesting, but also helps I think both of the angles I'm on here, where if there is grappling early while they're fresh, that's the time that Roman Dolidze could find a submission, is early in the fight while he's still fresh and they're less sweaty, all that stuff. And then also that gives a better shot that we actually get a good price on Fluffy live, because maybe he doesn't shoot early. Maybe Dolidze does use his size and strength to beat him up on the feet. On the feet, it's kind of reminiscent of the Michel Pereira fight, where Dolidze is dangerous early, can hurt him. If he doesn't get him out of there, it's just going to get slowly worse for him. But we saw that in Hernandez's previous 5-round fight. I believe Pereira won the first round in that fight before getting finished in the fifth. Mm-hmm. So the way I'm actually betting it is not just Dolidze straight up round one. There's a new bet I found. I don't know how long they've been doing this at DraftKings, but you can bet on the round one money line, and that it gets refunded if the fight doesn't end in round one. Dolidze is plus 165 on that. The finish only money line is plus 200. Those should be a lot farther apart, stereotypically, right? Like there's 4 more rounds, you'd think there'd be a likelier chance. Most of his upside is in round one. If it doesn't happen, you get that bet back. No harm, no foul. And then if you can get a better price on Fluffy after that live, great. If not, then you just watch the rest of the fight and enjoy it. Nothing gained, nothing lost. That's how I'm structuring it here, just because I think if he's going to win, that's when it's the likeliest to happen. I don't see Hernandez getting a round one finish, because he has to make you tired first, especially against a grappler like Dolidze, who's not just going to get rear nakeded in the first round for no reason. So that could very well end up with me not having any action on this fight, depending on how it breaks. But I'd rather that than having bets that I don't like.
Yeah, that Dolidze round one money line, I would say if either fighter should be favored to win in round one, it should probably be Roman Dolidze. So getting plus 165, I think certainly enticing and likely to get it refunded. I mean, just by percentage chances. But yeah, if Dolidze wins, I think it's in the first 7.5 minutes of this fight, and then Fluffy at any point after that. Let's move on to our fight of the night, the co-main event between Steve Erceg and Ode Osborne. Erceg coming in as about a minus 550 favorite, despite dropping 3 consecutive fights, albeit against top-level fighters within the division, all former champions or title challengers in Pantoja and KKF and Brandon Moreno. Ode been fighting on the first prelim a lot, now going up to a co-main event. Speaks to the quality of these Apex cards, but I actually think Ode has a path to victory here. I'll lay out a few reasons why I would be concerned about Erceg this weekend. Number one, 2 fights removed from that knockout loss to KKF. Also has just fought a lot recently, taken a bunch of damage, and has not taken time off. Another, though, main reason here is the travel. Ode trains in Las Vegas. Steve Erceg has to travel all the way from Perth in Australia to get to Las Vegas for this fight. And it's not as simple as flying to Sydney, or not as simple as flying from Sydney to Las Vegas. I believe he has to travel from Perth to Sydney, which is like an 8-hour flight, and then has to travel all the way from Sydney or Melbourne. I'm not sure where he flies out of, but he literally has to fly across Australia and then do an extra flight all the way to Las Vegas. So it's almost a day's worth of travel for Steve Erceg just to get to Las Vegas for this fight. Never mind the weight cutting, all that extra stuff on top of it. So the body clock stuff could be a mess for Erceg here. And then lastly, this fight is up a division. These guys are competing at bantamweight instead of flyweight. I think that helps Ode's cardio immensely. He's typically a guy who is a fast starter and then struggles the longer the fight goes. That said, moving up to bantamweight should also help Erceg's chin, because the chin, if it is a concern at all, should be a little bit more durable, not cutting weight to 125 and instead taking the fight at 135. But ultimately, I think with Ode's cardio looking a little bit better, with Erceg's chin potentially being helped out a little bit, I like this fight to go all 15 minutes, and I like Ode to make it a little bit more competitive than the money line suggests. So the fight goes to decision at plus 165. I projected this closer to plus 125. Bantamweight fights go to decision at about a 58% clip in 3-round fights. So getting nice plus money there. And then Ode, I made closer to plus 350. You're getting as high as plus 430. I think you could take a small stab on his money line and then potentially hedge out on Erceg live. Ode is going to have a 5-inch reach advantage here. I do think he will be competitive, especially if he does not fade down the stretch, given the fact that he doesn't have to cut weight to get to 135. So, Billy, I know you're on the other side here. You do like Erceg to finish, but you actually prefer Erceg to grapple and land at least one takedown, if not two or more in this fight. So tell me about the line movement on that prop, where you like it to currently, and then any other wagers you got for this one.
Yeah, I mean, my thesis here is that Steve Erceg just has to grapple here because he needs a win. He's 0-3. Yes, it was high-level competition. Not a lot of guys get to stick around on 4 straight losses. I don't think he has the name recognition or the fanfare or whatever to do that. They're trying to make that happen. First, they gave him Hyun-Sung Park. Now it's Ode Osborne. Ode stepping in on short notice. My guess is Erceg has been in America for a couple, like since this fight was originally planned. I don't think they flew him home once Park got moved off this card. I don't know that for sure. Like, it's hard to tell exactly, but that would be my assumption. We think of Steve Erceg as a striker generally because that's how he started his UFC career. He was a national champion wrestler in Australia growing up. Pretty high-level jiu-jitsu guy. Most of his pre-UFC wins were actually submissions, not strikes. He has, 6 submission wins before he got to the UFC. 1 knockout in the UFC, 1 knockout prior. So that was his game plan before this. I think he probably correctly assumed that by standing and trading and knocking some people out, it'd be a faster rise to a title and to the fanfare that you need to make money in the UFC. But we're past that now. We just have to win fights. Ode, also a high school wrestler. I think he wrestled 1 year in college, but then the college was shut down and it was a whole thing. A better striker. Ode, when he gets put on his back, he likes to just stay in close guard and look for submissions and try to hit you from the bottom. And then when he does go to get up, he just immediately goes belly down. So if you have any kind of back-taking ability, it's going to be there. My first bet on this is Erceg by submission at plus 185. I was hoping we get better lines on that. I think everyone has kind of came to the same conclusion I did about how Erceg's going to approach this fight, unfortunately. The one I really like, and it's not available right now, is Erceg over 1.5 takedowns. It was plus 130 at DraftKings. Then they moved it to over a half takedown at around minus 300. As we're recording this, it's not available. I would make his takedown prop, like his median is right around 2. I think he gets a second one. Some of those mat returns from the back are often scored as takedowns. You mentioned that with Anthony Hernandez. That's how he got 10 scored against Pereira. If you can get over 1.5 at plus money, I would definitely take that. Over a half, I mean, a fair line is probably like minus 350 or something like that. I don't necessarily want to lay that kind of juice, but over a half almost feels like as close to free money as we can get, just not a lot of money. So those are my favorites. Keep an eye on the books that tend to offer those. Or if you're playing on pick'em sites, I really like his over takedowns for, trying to build those props as well. I'm sorry, his higher takedowns if you're playing on a pick'em site.
Yeah, higher, not over. Got to be very clear and distinct about that. Get to our favorite underdogs in a moment, but first, football season's here, folks, and we've got some huge improvements and updates coming to the award-winning Action Network app, which we're very excited to discuss in the weeks ahead. But to get the most out of the app, you'll still need to be an Action Pro subscriber, and it's only with Action Pro you get real-time pick alerts from me and the entire Action Network team of experts. Plus, you can access Action Pro projections, powered by Sean Kerner and our predictive analytics team, plus a ton of other benefits. And right now, Action Network podcast listeners can save $20 off of an annual subscription and the annual price of Action Pro. Just go to actionnetwork.com/pro and use promo code POD20. That's actionnetwork.com/pro and use promo code POD20 for $20 off the annual price of Action Pro. Hopefully we can win you some underdog money to pay for your Action Pro subscription with. The first of 4 that we're going to talk about here, first of 4 fights, I'm going to toss it to you, Billy, to discuss Julius Walker against Rafael Cerqueira. Walker coming in at about a minus 700 price tag. Cerqueira plus 500. Walker in a potential trap spot here, I will say, because he's the typical guy who overperformed as an underdog in his UFC debut. Was very competitive with Alonzo Menifield at plus 200, I believe, on short notice. Also relatively inexperienced, just 7 professional fights. I believe Cerqueira has double the number of pro fights, but he was knocked out in the first round in each of his 2 UFC bouts against Ibo Aslan and Modestas Bukauskas, just about 3 minutes of fight time combined in those matchups. So what do you see in Cerqueira that lets you to believe he could take down Julius Walker this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is what you referenced at the beginning. It's the classic spot of a guy comes in on short notice, wins a moral victory, but not an actual victory. Also won, like, if my memory serves, the least deserving fight of the night ever on that card was Menifield versus Walker. I think that was the really bad one. I'd have to go back and look at the whole card, which I'm not doing right now. Yeah, and yes, it's meaningful that you were able to remain competitive with like a UFC veteran like Menifield, but he didn't win. And I thought, even though it was a split decision, I thought 30-27 Menifield was probably a more accurate scorecard than 29-28 Walker. Like, I don't really see how anyone scored that fight for him. Surcaria was really good before he got to the UFC. He was 11-0, finished almost everyone he fought, and then his chin just totally fell apart for some reason. I don't know what would cause that, or if it's just a coincidence. The guys he fought, Ibo Aslan in particular, but Modestus Bukauskas, both pretty powerful strikers, both guys who can hurt you. I don't know. We haven't seen that from Julius Walker, at least at a UFC level. He might have that, but it's not like he dropped Menifield or really had him, super hurt in that fight. Landed a decent amount of volume. If Surcaria can survive that, I think he's the more technical fighter. I think might even be the harder hitter. We're putting a lot of faith in Walker to be able to turn the lights out just because the guy got knocked out a couple times. It's plus 500. I don't think Surcaria is going to win. I think he probably gets knocked out again, and he's just one of those guys. But given the odds, I think he has a much better than 20% chance or whatever of being more durable, or it just being a coincidence, or any of those things. And he's taken 7 months since the last knockout. I'd like to see it be a little bit longer, but that's also a reasonable amount of time where I'm not extremely worried about it.
Let's discuss the first fight on the card, the one added latest. That's Cody Brundage against Eric McConaughey. Up at light heavyweight, Brundage not having to cut as much weight as he typically does to get to middleweight, where he has absolutely terrible cardio. But in the same respect, I never thought he was particularly in shape at middleweight. And if he is moving up to light heavyweight here, I don't really expect much improvement in the gas tank. Now, Cody Brundage has had the most Linsanity run in the UFC. I'm going to go back briefly through his recent fight history because it's absolutely hysterical. If you're not aware, his recent technical decision loss to Mansour Abdul Malik was overturned from a technical decision win for Abdul Malik to a draw. Joining Brundage's recent run of good luck, where he had a no contest declared against Abdul Razak Al Hassan because he was elbowed to the back of the head. He got Jacob Malkoun disqualified for the same strike, an illegal elbow to the back of the head. And his wins, or his other fights, he was the first man to take Bo Nickel over 1.5 rounds. He has that slam TKO over Zachary Reese. And he also fought to the death with Julian Marquez, where he was knocked down, basically seemed out at 2 different points. Ref kept it going, and then he got back up and landed a fight-ending blow on Marquez. So realistically, Cody Brundage could be like 0-6 or 0-7 in his past 6 fights. Realistically, or actually in actuality, I believe he is 2-3-1, 2-2-1 over that span. Just one of the most remarkable UFC careers ever. This is a guy who probably should have been cut 2 years ago, but because he refuses to lose, or the judges allow him to refuse to lose a 3rd consecutive fight, the UFC is yet to cut him. It's not like his fights, other than that Marquez fight, are particularly exciting either. But the typical flow of a Cody Brundage fight, he tends to have success early and then fade the longer his fights extend. Now, we do not have prop lines out yet for this fight because it was the last one added to the card. I believe the under 1.5 is around -150. Might be -150 to the over. Either way, I think the
-130 here on the under.
It's -130 to the under. I would probably lean over there, but what I prefer is McConaughey round 2 and round 3 when those come out. I'm hoping you'll get 8-1, 12-1 respectively. They are out. What are the prices?
Like just 8-1 on round 2, as you were hoping for, and 14-1 round 3. So
good enough for me.
Right in line with what you're saying. Yeah.
Yep. I think 7-1 and 10-1 on those are fine. You can win. Let's put it this way. If you could put 0.1 on each of them, you could win over a half a unit still profit over a half a unit on round 2, and also bet the round 3. I think that's fine. So 6-1 and let's say 11-1 respectively. I would bet the round 2 and round 3 props for McConaughey in addition to a live bet. I think he's going to handle and fill out for the division a little bit better than Brundage does. He will have a 5-inch reach advantage here. Less experience, doesn't have the grappling upside, but I do not see Brundage wrestling successfully for more than about 5 to 7 minutes. So McConaughey live, McConaughey round 2, round 3, and very fortunate Billy with the poll on the round 2 and round 3 props.
It came up like as you were speaking.
Just unbelievable. I checked right before the show and they weren't out yet. So the timing is very fortunate. Weigh-ins here, not for about another 45 minutes or so. So no knowledge as to weight misses yet. No knowledge as to this fight being the last one added. Maybe it doesn't even go off. We'll see. Sometimes these fights that are added late, one of the guys doesn't make weight, which seems silly because it's usually up division. But yeah, McConaughey live, McConaughey round 2, round 3. Any thoughts for you on Brundage and McConaughey, Billy? And if not, we'll move on to our consensus underdog, which is Andre Fili against Christian Rodriguez.
Yeah, only thing I'll say is I'm pretty sure neither of these guys are going up to 205. It's just they took it on 3 or 4 days notice. Yep. That's, especially in those divisions where there's such a wide gap, like that's a really smart thing to do to make sure the fight actually does happen. We had that one poor kid a few weeks ago who was supposed to be on the Contender Series. They pulled him up, couldn't make weight. Now they cut him from everything. It's like, yeah, he couldn't really say no in that spot. Give the guys the extra weight class or even a catch weight, which they don't like to do. That's the only thing I've added. I'm pretty sure this is not a weight shift for the what's Brundage, like 5'9" or something? They list him at 6 foot. He doesn't look 6 foot, but he's not a 205er. Long story short, so he better not go up for his career, I guess is all I can say. With the Marquez fight, didn't he get like a break because of a foul or something in there too when he was about to get knocked out? So even though there was no fishy ending, he was greatly helped by the referee.
Yeah, he's the master of knowing the rules. A lot of guys don't know the rules, don't cheat enough. Cody Brundage is taking every rule to his advantage. So fight IQ 11 out of 10 for Cody Brundage, I suppose. There was a brief like foul stoppage, and then he was allowed to catch his breath and reset.
But it was like when he was about to get knocked out, wasn't it? Like he was right on the I can't go back and watch Cody Brundage fights. I won't unless he's like in the main event of a pay-per-view for some reason. I'm not going to do that, but that was my memory of it.
Yeah, that Marquez Brundage fight of Cody Brundage's career, that was by far the most entertaining bout. The two dudes just swung it out with each other. I think I had the over 1.5. Was extremely dumb in hindsight, but fun fight. Speaking of potentially fun fights, Andre Fili plus 200 against Christian Rodriguez at minus 240. Now, I will say the reasons why I'd be cautious about betting Fili here. For one, he is the much older fighter, 7 years older, and on the wrong side of the divisional age curve. Average age for the division is 35. Rodriguez is 27. Average age for the division is 32. Fili is 35. Rodriguez is 27. So both on like the wrong side that you want to see of the age curve in terms of betting Fili potentially here. But this fight is still juiced to go to a decision. Fili is extremely well-rounded and likely to stay competitive in all areas of this fight. And frankly, I view C-Rod as a better defensive fighter and a better resistor and a better guy at defensively grappling, avoiding what his opponents are trying to execute, and then putting offense on them as they fade down the stretch. In an extended kickboxing match, I think Fili could be the more technical man and the more efficient guy. So Andre Fili plus 200, certainly intriguing. This fight is minus 180 to go to a decision. I projected that closer to minus 240. I also imagine I show value. I didn't check, but Fili by decision, probably a prop that I show value on as well. Concern here, Billy, is that Rodriguez is just going to be too quick for Fili. Younger man, just too quick. Fili competitive against the older 145ers like Cub Swanson, but against the younger guy like Melky Costa or Rodriguez may just be outclassed athletically. So what are your thoughts on the relative physical state of these two against one another? And then separate from that, the skill set of Fili that could potentially keep him competitive here.
Yeah, I think Fili uses his range very well for the division. And C-Rod is kind of, we don't usually say there's like a tweener between bantamweight and featherweight because those weight classes are so close. But he's not a big featherweight. He just couldn't make bantamweight anymore. He's a guy where you feel like if they could get him on a better weight cutting program, or if his body would just really sweat a little bit easier, because some people don't, he would be a real problem at bantamweight. I just don't think he has it to that level at featherweight. He's still very good. He's still going to be a guy who sticks around. he's just not kind of the star he could have been at bantamweight.
Yeah, Philly's, I just didn't interject. Philly's 4 inches taller
Yeah,
with the 3-inch reach advantage. I
right.
neglected to say the size advantage for Philly.
And I think a quicker striker, like he moves faster on the feet, hands and feet are faster. C-Rod could grapple, but it's hard to grapple guys who are bigger and heavier, right? Like you can't make him carry your weight. I think Feely probably ends up 8 to 10 pounds heavier when the cage door shuts, something like that as well, which is scary. And then on a slightly less serious, but like maybe relevant point, this is just the kind of fight that C-Rod loses, right? If you're an undefeated prospect who everyone expects to be awesome, C-Rod beats you for some reason. If you're just like a random journeyman, like, I don't know, Julian Erosa, or who's the other one? Melky Costa kind of in between. But those are the guys that C-Rod historically loses to. I don't know why. It doesn't seem like there's a good explanation for beating Austin Bashi, Isaac Dalgarian, Cameron Saman, and Raul Rosas, and then getting guillotined by Juicy J, but here we are. So 2-1 odds on Feely. I like that. C-Rod could take over late. I think he's the one thing about his featherweight move that has really helped is his cardio's been very, very good, especially against those prospects who are grappling. Feely's not really a cardio concern, though, so I don't think that's too big of a factor.
Let's move on as we progress from our underdogs into the prop section, a fight that I like the underdog in potentially, but we both like to go to a decision at big plus money. Gabriel Fernandez, about a minus 450 favorite against Julia Stolyarenko at plus 350 in the women's flyweight division. Now, these fighters are the same age, same height, and reach. Stolyarenko, though, has won 10 of her 11 career wins by round one armbar. She's a very direct fighting style. She knows exactly what she's trying to do, and if she does not execute it, she's unlikely to win her fights. That said, she does have a 5-round split decision win from an Invicta title fight, so she does have the cardio to go 25 minutes. Doesn't necessarily have the durability if she isn't executing her style to survive all of the time, but we do like this fight to go to a decision more often than the odds suggest. Divisional average here, about 61% overall. Is this women's flyweight or women's bantamweight? I have women's flyweight right now.
Yeah,
this is flyweight. Yeah. Bantamweights go to decision out as 61% clip. Flyweights, I believe, is closer to 64%. I projected this right as a coin flip, 50% on the nose, and they're giving you plus 165. So even a little bit higher than that. So GTD, I think, is an interesting bet. And then Stolyarenko, I'll probably poke at plus 350 in the event that she does secure that round one submission. I think that is the only way that this one finishes, other than Fernandez potentially tiring her out and finishing her from top position in round 3. So, Billy, how do you see this one playing out in a manner where it goes all 15 minutes? I'd imagine you don't expect Fernandez to get submitted, but you think Stolyarenko should do fine surviving if she isn't able to get that early armbar?
Do fine is a strong way to phrase it, but we're getting almost 2-1 odds on it, so it doesn't have to be too strong of a feeling. Both of the women involved, their biggest finishing threat is via submission. Both Fernandez and Stolyarenko, if they're going to finish, that's likely how it gets done. If you watch like white belt grappling matches, they all end in submissions, and when you watch black belts, they rarely do. It's just one of those things that the higher the level gets, the less likely either person is going to get one. I worry a little bit about Stolyarenko like going for submissions off her back and getting herself in a bad spot. Outside of that, though, unless she just fades really badly down the stretch, this is going to be one of those, they both get some takedowns, they scramble around, both land some punches without a ton of power. Don't really see either one just getting a big knockout. So we've got volume, striking, or a quick submission, neither of which seem exceedingly likely, especially when we're getting 2-1. And I also wrote down in my notes the divisional average being much lower than that. I'm just not sure why the market has decided this one's a heavy finisher.
Yeah, I think it's probably Stolyarenko's like finishing equity normally, but she's a huge underdog. So if she's less likely to win the fight, what are the actual chances that she does pull off the armbar? Yeah, I think you can maybe even consider her round one sub prop as a potential hedge to the GTD here, but I'll likely be playing Stolly and the GTD together. A few more fights that we like from a prop perspective, and then we will wrap things up with 2 more fights from a best bet perspective and cover all 12 fights on this card in the regular portion of the show. Let's talk about Jocelyn Edwards against Priscilla Cachoeira in the women's bantamweight division. It's a very similar dynamic for me as the Carajosa Cornell fight from last week, where I project value on Edwards. Fight goes to decision, and Edwards by decision. I'm just going to wrap all three of those opinions up into Edwards to win by decision. I think Cachoeira has less of a chance at surviving on bottom than Cornell did last week. We've seen Cachoeira both struggle on bottom, but then also cheat to try to get her way out from bottom. Eye pokes, just a chief fouler. She is the woman's Cody Brundage, I guess, on this card in terms of fight IQ and doing what you need to do in order to win. But I did make Edwards' decision line about minus 150 here, and they're giving you plus 108. So I basically have no choice but to fire at her decision prop. If she finishes Cachoeira on the mat, will not be shocked. I'd be interested in Edwards on the point spread here as well. If she decides to proactively grapple, I think she should win all 3 rounds, if not finish the fight. If she does not proactively grapple, I think Cachoeira will be the more dangerous striker. So if you're betting decision, if you're betting GTD here, I think it's all kind of feeding into Edwards as the side. I think Cachoeira likelier to finish this fight on the feet, but getting GTD at plus money in another women's fight where the average is over 60%, another bet I'm going to lead into percentage-wise. Billy, any interest after we just discussed the Stolyarenko GTD fight at plus 165? Any interest on the GTD here at about plus 108?
Probably not for me. I will just point out a couple lines. I kind of like these. Not sure if I'll bet any of them. Cachoeira on the finish only money line is plus 300, which probably closer than that. Like, I agree with your take on Edwards needing a decision. Cachoeira on the round 1 money line plus 330. I think that's probably even better than the finish only money line, because Edwards' late finish doesn't seem all that surprising to me. Edwards' early finish does a little bit. And then my favorite bet that never wins, point to be deducted, 20-1. It's always out there. I mean, Cachoeira is a good candidate for it. We know MMA refs don't actually enforce the rules unless Cody Brundage is fighting. But since Cody Brundage is not involved in this one, we're going to have to – probably not going to cash it. But again, it's 21. If Priscilla Cachoeira fought Cody Brundage, that line would be like minus 500. But that obviously won't happen.
I feel like Jocelyn Edwards has also been in a fight that, like, a 15-minute fight that took like 2 hours because there were so many fouls. I can't remember. It might have been her fight against Cornell, honestly. I'd have to go back and watch that one. I feel like there were a million fouls in that Cornell Edwards fight. It was the first fight on the card. Cornell won like an undeserved decision, but the fight took forever. So, there's definitely been fights in Edwards' career where either her or her opponent have committed fouls as well. So this could be a potential spot for a Cachoeira point deduction prop bet. Another fighter I like at big underdog odds this weekend, but I think you'll get a better live line on him, and I like his round 2 and round 3 props as well. That's Gilbert Urbina at about plus 310 against Uros Medic. Urbina is the bigger man, 2 inches taller, 4-inch reach advantage, but he's going to get hit and hit hard early, and Medic is a dangerous early finisher. But if Urbina, who has better cardio, is able to survive those exchanges, I think he could drown Medic down the stretch, potentially finish him in round 2 at plus 1,600 or round 3 at 26-1. And I think you'll get a better live price on Urbina after round 1 than you do pre-fight. So I'll probably have those pre-fight late round props on Urbina, and then I'll be looking for a live money line after 5 minutes. Billy, any thoughts on Medic and Urbina for Saturday?
More of a question than a thought. Where's Gilbert Urbina been? Like, what's he? I feel like we haven't heard that name in a while. It's looking like he hasn't fought in a year and a half. Like, that always worries me a little bit. Younger guy, but yeah, I'm with you from a technical standpoint. When we don't see a guy for 18 months, looks like he had a canceled fight in there listed as Urbina injury. So you never know. If he loses and sticks around, that'd be 2 losses in a row. I would look at the next fight as the Gilbert Urbina jump back in point, personally.
Yeah, fair enough. That Malott fight was booked for July of 2024. So it's been over a year since he pulled out of that fight with injury. Not sure what the injury actually was. Would have to investigate further. But regardless, I think given the dynamic and the styles of these two fighters, it's going to be Medic early or Urbina late pretty consistently. And live bet also gives you the opportunity to see how he looks coming off of that long layoff. Miles Johns against John Matsumoto in the bantamweight division. Matsumoto about a minus 300 favorite. Johns plus 240. I think Matsumoto, very similar to Urbina, can finish this one late, but he is a favorite, so you're getting lesser odds in terms of the round 2 and round 3 props. 8-1 for round 2, 12-1 for round 3. Pretty similar price point to what you're getting on that McConaughey and Brundage fight, but again, McConaughey, the underdog, Matsumoto, a minus 300 favorite, because this Matsumoto Johns fight is minus 250 to go all 15 minutes. The same game parlay on Matsumoto and over 1.5, not going to pay that well, because I think the over 1.5 is like minus 650. So that same game parlay is still going to be, minus 200 or worse. But Matsumoto, 5 years younger. John's pretty one-dimensional, has that overhand, can wrestle a little bit. I think Matsumoto denies the takedowns, wears him out, and potentially finishes this fight late. My only thing stopping me from being more excited about this bet, because Matsumoto to me is almost like Josh Mann with more grappling. He like that building fighting style, picks up more as it goes, attritional finisher. Johns did fight, I believe, Felipe Lima in his last fight, and I was pretty convinced that Lima was going to finish him in round 2 and round 3. Lima's one of my favorite prospects out there, and Lima was not able to do so. They went all 15 minutes, and then Lima ultimately lost to Peyton Talbot last time out. So I view Lima, I think, as a better prospect than Matsumoto. I'm not sure where you fall on Matsumoto versus Lima. And I think Lima is a more dangerous finisher potentially than Matsumoto too. So like it's not an apples to apples comparison necessarily. And I hate to do the MMA math thing, but I was pretty convinced Lima was going to finish Johns down the stretch. He didn't. I think Matsumoto can do it, but the Lima fight makes me less convinced that it's going to happen. So 8-1, 12-1 if you want to bet it. Matsumoto round 2, round 3. Also Matsumoto, if the price moves in at all after round 1, I would live bet him as well. I think it's unlikely to happen though. So you seem to be in pretty similar agreement with me there at the end. Like you lean that way, but may not want to bet it.
Yeah, I think Lima's a considerably better prospect than Matsumoto. Not that Matsumoto's bad, but just there's levels to it. I also thought Matsumoto beat Rob Font in that split decision.
Yeah.
So that changed a little bit. I think the one case you could make is that now Miles Johns, a little bit older, not old, but did take a decent amount of damage against Felipe Lima. We're one more fight down the line. Somebody else cracked it. Somebody else loosened the jar, and now Gene Matsumoto might finally actually open it. I think that's the case for what you're trying to say here, as well as the grappling upside, because Johns has been submitted. So I can see it. I'm not excited about it. I hate trying to poo-poo bets that you gave out at like 8 and 12-1 though, because they're long shots, right? Like we don't expect them to win. I think you're onto something. It just, the Felipe Lima fight makes it scary.
Yeah, if that same game parlay was more reasonable, if it was like minus 150 on Matsumoto and over 1.5 instead of, I think it's going to be like minus 225, minus 250.
Yeah, it's just his money line.
Yeah, I can't do it at the price point. But live Matsumoto, if it gets into a better range, and maybe round 2, round 3, stabs. Another fight that we discussed earlier this week from a prop perspective, Angela Hill against Yasmin Lucindo. Now, this could be a major age trap because Hill is 17 years older than Lucindo. I think the biggest age gap I've seen potentially in a UFC fight. Lucindo, 23 years old. Angie Hill, 40 years old. When Angie Hill took her first professional Muay Thai bout, Yasmin Lucindo was 9 years old. So that is the age gap differential between these two. But I do think in a fight that is minus 500 to go to a decision, Angie is going to be a little bit more enthusiastic about trying to do stuff for the judges. Lucindo just looked disinterested in her last fight against Amanda Lemos. I think she landed like fewer than 10 significant strikes for the entire fight. Really just didn't engage at all. I thought she had the wrestling upside in that fight. Didn't really pursue it. She just didn't look like she wanted to be in there whatsoever. But ultimately, I think the price distinction between Angie's money line at about plus 150 and her decision prop north of plus 200 is too wide. I make her money line plus 163, so no value for me there, but I make her decision prop about plus 192. So 2-1 or better on Angie by decision in a fight that is heavily juiced to go to a decision in a fight where I think she could be a little bit more active than her opponent. Angie by decision at 2-1 seems kind of enticing relative to her money line. Billy, agree or disagree with that sentiment?
Yeah, 100%. We talked about this one earlier. I don't know if I said it to you or somewhere else, but it seems like Angela Hill just started learning to grapple at like 35 after being in the UFC for a decade at that point. She's like, yeah, maybe I should learn some wrestling, which is funny, but also impressive that it worked, right? Like normally people try that late in their career. Doesn't happen. One thing I want to point out, though, you mentioned biggest age gap you can remember. At UFC 4, Hoist Gracie fought Ron Van Cleef with a 23-year age gap. Only UFC appearance for the legendary martial artist Ron Van Cleef. That was the one I had the best off the top of my head. There's probably been in like one of those first handful of UFCs, they probably had a 60-year-old guy in there at one point. But yeah, just throwing that one out there.
I would assume Hoist was the younger, was the older man of the two.
No, Hoist was 23 years younger than
Hoist was
Ron
23 years younger. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they don't list Ron Van Cleef's age. He was born in 1943, and UFC 4 happened in 1994. So Van Cleef was 51 years old.
For his one and only. Incredible. Oh yeah, I see the picture of Ron with the gray hair inside the cage. Absolutely right. Incredible. He with the Rocky American flag shorts too. Just absolutely great aesthetic.
They're looking like a proto Beneil Dariush with all that gray hair.
He really does. He's got the Benny hair 100%. Before we get to our best bets, just one more message from Action Network. The Ultimate 2025 Fantasy Football Draft Kit is here. Sean Kerner and Chris Raybon have rankings, tiers, cheat sheets, and more to help you navigate your fantasy football drafts. New subscribers to the Fantasy Labs NFL can use code FLEX20 for $20 off at fantasylabs.com/flex. That's promo code. That's $20 off with promo code FLEX20 at fantasylabs.com/flex. I'll be using those tools to help prep myself for my own fantasy draft later this month, as I do every year. Have not won a league since Peyton Manning was playing quarterback at a high level for the Indianapolis Colts. However, I'm in the playoffs every single year, and I think from there it's just a little bit of coin flip luck for or against as to whether you advance consistently in the playoffs, and these tools will help you stay competitive in your league. Some best bets, though, for this weekend. More of a final bet for me between Elijah Smith and Toshiomi Kazama. Not even that I projected value on this bet particularly, but in terms of my reads going through these fights, this fight just screamed binary quick finish, because Kazama coming in off-road to UFC got KO'd by Rindy Nakamura, KO'd by Garrett Armfield, both early in those fights. Then got knocked down by Charlampos Grigoriou. So knocked down or knocked out in all three of his UFC bouts. Striking defense, 42%, is a major concern. Does have some pretty interesting lethal grappling, though, and I think this could be a binary matchup where he has a grappling advantage over Smith, who we saw taken down multiple times with Vince Morales, put in a few different submission attempts. I think Smith, though, likely to finish this fight via early knockout. Under 1.5 here is -130. I think I like that up to around -150, considering the dynamics and the binary nature of this matchup. I think a Smith early KO is very likely, however, and probably a pretty good fight, too, from a DFS perspective, considering I think either likely to finish this one pretty quick. Billy, any thoughts on that fight? And then you've got another ends inside the distance or under that you want to give out between Eric Anders and CLD Christian Leroy Duncan.
Yeah, you hit my thoughts ahead of time. I've been all over Smith from a DFS standpoint for a lot of reasons. He and Julius Walker are the two most expensive fighters. I just think Smith is a much better option because if he doesn't get an early finish, he's probably going to wrestle a ton. Either way, you're kind of happy with that for DFS. So just hits that nice the upside early or upside late thing that you don't get from a lot of fighters. And yeah, the one I'm looking at, Eric Anders and CLD, ends inside the distance. The tale as old as time, classic style versus style fight. We have a football player versus a basketball player in UFC, as we see all the time, you know, tons of those. Eric Anders, obviously your boy, the NFL training camp player or practice squad, I think as high as he got. Mostly a grappler. He's a BJJ black belt, competes in grappling competitions. Yeah. Doesn't submit anyone in the UFC, but he uses his grappling for ground and pound pretty well. CLD, pretty bad grappler by UFC standards, I would say. Also a tall, skinny former basketball player. Not helpful. CLD can crack. Anders has been dropped in 3 straight fights, has managed to not be knocked out in any of those fights. But those are against Marc-Andre Barrial, Jamie Pickett, the Nightwolf, and Chris Weidman. If those guys are dropping you, CLD is probably going to put you out. Alternatively, Eric Anders gets some takedowns, gets top position against a tall, skinny guy who doesn't grapple well. He'll probably find the finish at some point. We're getting plus money on that in a division, middleweight, where the average is, I believe, close to a 60% finish rate. Looking that up off the top, or saying that off the top of my head, not looking it up. Plus, probably, as you've pointed out many times, higher in the apex, especially for the bigger weight classes where the guys get shoved together. So everything pointing in the same direction. End and time the distance is plus 115. Under 2.5 is plus 145. I'd say that's an accurate price gap, right? Like the 30 cents based on it going a little bit longer. Play it however you want. Like I could see that one either way, but one of those two.
Yeah, middleweight's a 62% finish rate. It's actually the highest of all divisions over the past 3 years. It goes down to 60% at light heavy, and then 48% because the heavyweight division is so trash, nobody is capable of finishing one another. It's just a bunch of fat dudes rolling around and throwing volume and cardio kickboxing with one another at this point. But yeah, getting a decent. I mean, the average for this division should be closer to minus 150 if you're, or even minus 160 if you're going off of that 62% number. And getting plus 120 on this certainly seems appealing. I did project this closer to a coin flip to end inside the distance, but certainly get the logic. And Anders has looked physically diminished in his recent fights. I think that is very accurate. Duncan should have a big speed advantage. Should also point out too, like Anders getting knocked down by Barrio, a bit older. Weidman, way older. Pickett, no power. I mean, Jamie Pickett would probably knock me unconscious, but you know, if he was fighting an egg in the UFC, I'm not sure if he would crack it. So yeah, definitely like a major concern when you're getting knocked out by Jamie Pickett at this stage of his career. But Anders can be competitive with the grappling. We're not really sure what Duncan's extended wrestling looks like, and Anders is pretty good at fighting through exhaustion too. Like even thinking back to the Darren Stewart fights, you know, they were ugly fights, but Anders seemed to be doing a little bit better at just fighting through both of them being completely gassed. But did touch on all 12 fights this week. That'll do it for our UFC betting preview. You can find more UFC content for both Billy and myself on actionnetwork.com. And if you'd like to instantly tell some of the bets that we discussed on today's show, look for the quick slip links both in the podcast and video description, or visit actionnetwork.com/bet now. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app and sign up for Action Pro for immediate access to expert picks and analysis. Best of luck with all your bets this weekend. Enjoy the violence. Thank you for listening. We'll see you back here for next week's pay-per-view.